All right, strap in, everyone. Today, we are going deep, deep, deep into Roman history.
Deep.
Yeah, the whole shebang.
A whole thing.
The whole thing.
Oh, wow.
From the very beginning, Romulus and Remus.
Okay.
All the way through the Republic, the rise and fall of the
Oh,
Empire.
my gosh.
And even further into the Byzantine world and the legacy of Rome in the Middle Ages.
Okay.
So we've got a lot of sources that are focusing on the military and the political.
Right.
Let's do some history.
I mean, it is over 2,000 years
It is.
of just incredible figures and events.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it really is like a soap opera, but with togas and gladiators.
Yeah, and we're starting with those legendary beginnings.
Okay.
Romulus and Remus,
Right.
raised by a she-wolf.
That's right.
I mean, it doesn't get much more legendary than that.
It's a classic.
It is.
It is.
But our sources point out that, this origin story has layers.
Oh.
Like later on, they kind of invented those Alban kings to connect their founding back to the Trojan War.
Yeah.
I see.
And Aeneas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, and it's interesting because, like, even if it was made up,
Right.
even if those myths were invented later,
Mm-hmm.
it still shows you what the Romans valued.
Yeah, sure.
Like, Romulus welcomed outcasts,
Yeah.
and that's a theme you see over and over again as Rome expands.
Okay.
He also kills his brother
Oh, yeah.
and
yeah.
overthrows a tyrant.
Right.
Not exactly peaceful beginnings.
No, not peaceful beginnings.
No.
So they kind of had a taste for drama, it seems,
Yeah.
from the start.
It seems,
And speaking of drama,
yeah.
their strategy for expansion was this thing called expanding defense.
Expanding defense.
Yeah, basically they were always defending themselves by conquering their neighbors.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
always on the defensive,
All right.
always
So
expanding.
it's like, yeah, we're just defending ourselves.
Right, exactly.
We have to take your land.
You have to take your land. Yep.
That's great.
And,
And that tension between internal conflict
yeah.
and outward expansion.
Right.
You see this thread throughout Roman history.
Yeah.
And one of the big examples of this
Yeah.
is the struggle between the patricians and the plebeians.
Right. Okay, so the patricians, they're like the old money,
Yeah, the old money.
holding all the power.
All the power.
And then the plebeians are
Yeah, like the
everyday people.
Romans who are like, hey, wait a minute.
We want a piece of
We
it.
want to say in this too.
Right. And what's amazing is how the plebeians get those rights.
Yeah. How did they do that?
I mean, not through violent revolution.
Oh, yeah.
They use these really smart strategic strikes.
Interesting.
Like, they just refuse to fight in the army.
Oh.
That kept the patricians' attention real quick.
Yeah, I bet it did.
You need us to go fight those wars,
Right.
so give us some rights. And so they win concessions,
Wow.
right? To marry patricians, to hold office.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It shows you that even in ancient Rome, people power could make a
Right.
difference.
That's right.
So Rome is expanding.
Yeah.
Things are, we'll say, dynamic
Very dynamic.
internally.
Yeah.
And then they bump into Carthage in the Punic Wars.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
And this is where we get Hannibal crossing the Alps with elephants. Talk about a logistical nightmare.
Hannibal was a genius.
He was.
Militarily, I mean, that march over the Alps,
Yeah.
audacious.
Unbelievable.
And then he crushes the Romans at Cannae.
Yeah.
I mean, that battle is still studied today
Wow.
by military strategists.
Really?
But the thing about the Romans is they were so good at learning from defeat.
Oh, so even after Cannae, they were able to come back.
They were able to regroup.
Interesting.
Scipio Africanus,
Okay.
another brilliant general.
Okay.
He adapted Hannibal's own tactics against him
So they learned from the best.
and then defeated him at Zama.
Wow.
And this leads to the destruction of Carthage.
Carthago delenda est.
Carthago delenda est, yeah. This victory really shows you how determined the Romans were.
Uh-huh.
I mean, maybe also a little bit of a grudge.
Yeah. Thinking about that destruction of Carthage,
Right.
it makes me think about how the Romans viewed their enemies.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah, they weren't brutal.
exactly. And that ruthlessness
Yeah.
was often key to their success.
Right.
But it also led to problems down the road,
Yeah.
especially during the late Republic.
Yeah. This is where we get those powerful generals, right?
Right?
Marius
know.
Sulla, who basically used their armies to
Yeah, to settle
political scores.
Yeah, it was a chaotic time.
Yeah.
The Gracchi brothers tried to enact some land reforms.
Yeah.
They got assassinated,
Oh, wow.
which kind of shows you
Yeah, that's a clear sign.
that political violence was just becoming the norm.
Right.
And all of this paves the way for Julius Caesar.
Ah, Caesar.
What a story.
I've always been fascinated by Caesar.
Yeah.
I mean, captured by pirates,
demands a higher ransom.
I love that.
Comes back and has them crucified.
Yeah, like, don't mess with me.
Yeah, don't mess with Caesar.
Yeah.
He was brilliant, cunning, and a master at self-promotion.
Yeah.
Wrote about all his own victories in Gaul.
He did.
Oh, yeah, he wanted to make sure people knew.
I mean, the thing about Caesar is he really understood how to exploit the weaknesses of the Republic.
Right.
His wealth, military victories, charisma.
Right.
He used it all to gain power.
Yeah, and as with a lot of ambitious fellers in Roman history.
It's true.
It led to his downfall.
It did.
The Ides of March.
The Ides of March.
Assassinated by senators who were afraid he was going to become too powerful.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost Shakespearean.
It is. I mean, it's the end of the Republic and the beginning of the Empire.
Oh, wow.
And it's all thanks to Caesar's heir, Octavian, who later becomes Augustus.
Right, Augustus, yeah.
The first Roman emperor.
So we go from this period of, expansion.
Right.
And all this chaos.
Yeah.
To Augustus.
Yeah, what does he bring?
What does he bring to the table?
Well, Augustus was really clever.
Okay.
I mean, he made it look like he was restoring the Republic.
Oh, interesting.
But behind the scenes, he's consolidating power.
Oh, wow.
And with that power, he brings in the Pax Romana.
Pax Romana?
Yeah, this time of peace and prosperity.
Okay, so this is where we get the Colosseum.
Yeah.
And, all the
famous
aqueducts and
aqueducts,
the roads and it's the golden age of the Roman Empire.
Gladiators, emperors, massive buildings.
Yeah.
It's easy to romanticize this period.
It is.
But I'm guessing it wasn't all sunshine and roses.
Well, the Pax Romana did rely heavily on slavery.
Right.
That's the dark side that we can't ignore.
Yeah, for sure.
And gladiatorial combat.
Yeah.
While popular.
Yeah.
Incredibly brutal.
Right.
It reminds us that even golden ages have their shadows.
Yeah, and those shadows eventually grew, right? They did.
What led to the decline of such a powerful empire?
Well, I mean, the decline of the Western Roman Empire, it wasn't a sudden thing.
Okay.
It was more of a slow burn.
Okay.
And it really started with the crisis of the 3rd century.
The crisis of the 3rd century.
Yeah, you've got barbarian invasions, economic turmoil.
Oh, wow.
Emperors getting bumped off left and right.
So it's a mess.
It's a mess. The whole system's on the brink.
Wow. So not so Pax anymore, huh?
Not so peaceful.
But it's interesting because our sources mention these breakaway empires popping up in Gaul and Palmyra.
Right.
Almost like mini-Rome.
Like mini-Romes. And they were surprisingly successful.
Really?
Yeah, they had their own armies, institutions, even their own emperors.
So they were doing their own thing.
They were doing their own thing. And it's almost like they anticipated the reform that Diocletian would later put in place.
Diocletian, he was the one who split the empire in two,
That's right.
Trying to make it easier to manage.
Yeah, he realized that one man couldn't handle it all.
Right, it's a lot.
So he creates the tetrarchy.
The tetrarchy.
4 rulers, each responsible for their own chunk of the empire.
Interesting.
It wasn't perfect, but it bought them some time.
It bought them some time.
Yeah.
And then we get Constantine.
Who's
famous for legalizing Christianity and moving the capital.
2 big moves.
Yeah, 2 big moves to Constantinople.
Right. That's a game changer.
Yeah.
Constantine's conversion to Christianity had a huge impact.
No.
He saw how it could unify the empire.
Yeah.
And he used this idea of the Pax Diorum.
Pax Diorum.
The peace of the gods.
Okay.
To frame Christianity as a source of divine favor for Rome.
So basically he's saying, hey, if we're all on the same page religiously, things will go better for everybody.
Get the gods on our side.
Right, exactly.
And his decision to move the capital to Constantinople, strategically located between Europe and Asia, shifted the center of power eastward.
It's the start of the Byzantine Empire.
It is.
Which our sources emphasize is really a continuation of the Roman Empire in the East.
That's right. It's not a separate thing.
Okay.
It's a continuation.
But even with a new capital and a new religion,
the
Western Roman Empire couldn't escape those barbarian migrations.
No.
The sack of Rome in 410 by the Visigoths, that must have been a huge psychological blow.
Huge. I mean, Rome, the eternal city, sacked by barbarians. It shattered this idea of Roman invincibility.
Yeah, like how could this happen?
Right, but this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Our sources challenge that traditional narrative.
The traditional narrative
of civilized Romans versus savage barbarians.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So for one thing, lots of barbarians served in the Roman army as foederati.
Foederati.
Yeah, they fought alongside Roman soldiers. They adopted Roman customs. Some even rose to positions of power.
So it's not as black and white as we often think.
Not at all. The lines were blurred. Wow.
And in many ways, the barbarians were already a part of Roman society.
Which makes that traditional date for the fall of Rome, 476, when the last Western Roman emperor was deposed, seem almost arbitrary.
I mean, it was more symbolic than anything else.
Right, like it was more of a process.
A long process.
Yeah.
Roman institutions and culture, they lived on in the Byzantine Empire, the Christian church, even in the Romance languages.
So it's less of a fall and more of a transformation.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Which brings us back to the Byzantine Empire.
Yes.
This Eastern Roman Empire that endured for another 1,000 years.
1,000 years.
What made them so resilient?
Well, Constantinople, their capital, was amazingly located.
Okay.
Strategically, for trade.
Yeah.
Incredibly well fortified.
Right.
They had skilled diplomats, military strategists.
Oh, they knew what they were doing.
They knew what they were doing, and they weren't afraid to innovate.
Like Greek fire.
Greek fire.
The stuff that burns on water.
Talk about a secret weapon.
I mean, it was a terrifying weapon.
Yeah.
And it helped them defend themselves for centuries.
Wow.
But their resilience wasn't just about military might.
Right.
They had a rich intellectual and cultural tradition, too.
They were the keepers of ancient Greek knowledge, right?
They were. They preserved all those texts built on that knowledge.
Wow.
Made advancements in law, philosophy, theology.
I mean, just look at Justinian's code.
Exactly.
A legal system that's influenced European law for centuries.
That's right.
And let's not forget about their art and architecture.
Oh, the Hagia Sophia.
It's a masterpiece.
A masterpiece. It really shows you their skill and vision.
So the Byzantine Empire wasn't just some pale imitation of Rome.
No, not at all.
It was a distinct civilization
Absolutely.
with its own unique identity
Yes.
and achievements.
That's right.
So we've got these two halves of the Roman world now.
Yeah.
The Latin West, where the church is kind of stepping
into the power vacuum.
Right, filling that vacuum.
Yeah.
And then the Greek East, with the Byzantine Empire holding strong.
Still going strong.
What happens next?
Well, in the West, as Roman imperial authority fades, the church really steps up. Yeah. The popes in Rome, already influential, they start taking on more and more temporal power.
Temporal power, maybe.
Power in the real world.
Okay.
They're crowning kings. They're mediating disputes.
Wow.
They're basically shaping medieval European society.
So they're not just spiritual leaders anymore.
Not anymore.
They're political players.
Time players.
And the church itself is transforming.
It is.
Developing its own institutions. Doctrines, hierarchies.
And those early Christian basilicas, modeled on Roman law courts.
Oh, interesting.
They become the template for churches across Europe.
It's amazing how that Roman influence just keeps going.
I know, it's fast.
Even as the empire itself is gone.
It speaks to the power of those Roman ideas.
So meanwhile, back in the East, the Byzantine Empire is facing its own set of challenges.
They are.
Like what? What threats did they have to deal with?
Well, one of the biggest was the rise of Islam in the 7th century.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Muslim armies conquered huge swaths of Byzantine territory.
Like where?
Egypt, Syria, North Africa, just massive losses.
So economically and militarily?
Economically and militarily.
It must have been devastating.
It was a huge blow.
But they didn't just crumble.
No, they had that Greek fire.
Right. They had the Greek fire.
And they used it to great effect.
Okay.
But they also had to adapt, to reorganize. Yeah. They reformed their army, strengthened their defenses, focused on holding on to their core territories.
Okay, so they hunkered down.
They hunkered down.
And weathered the storm.
Weathered the storm. That's a good way to put it.
And they even had a bit of a renaissance, right?
They did.
The Byzantine Golden Age.
The Byzantine Golden Age under the Macedonian dynasty.
Wow, so they expanded their borders?
Expanded the border.
Economic boom.
An economic boom, stunning art and architecture.
So they had 9 lives.
They did.
But even the Byzantine Empire couldn't last forever.
Unfortunately not.
What happened?
Well, internal divisions, economic problems, and the rising power of the Seljuk Turks all took their toll.
The Seljuk Turks, they're the ones who defeated the Byzantines at the Battle of Manzikert.
That's right.
That was a crushing defeat, wasn't it?
It was a turning point. That battle in 1071 opened the door for the Seljuk Turks to conquer most of Anatolia.
Anatolia, the heartland of the Byzantine Empire.
That's right, the heartland. From that point on, they were really on the defensive.
And then, to add insult to injury, They get hit with the Crusades.
The Crusades, yeah.
Are the Crusaders supposed to be their allies?
You'd think so, right.
Yeah.
But the Crusaders, while aiming to liberate the Holy Land,
Right.
they often caused more problems than they solved.
In what way?
Well, they saw the Byzantines as weak and decadent.
Oh.
And they weren't above plundering their cities.
Wow, so you're trying to hold on to your empire.
Right.
And your supposed allies are stabbing you in the back.
Exactly. And the sack of Constantinople in 1204
By the Crusaders.
by the Crusaders was a devastating blow.
The empire never really recovered from that.
It never fully recovered.
So after 1204,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of time.
It's just a matter of time.
They're reduced to this small rump state.
Around Constantinople.
Yeah.
And then the Ottomans came knocking.
The Ottomans, the final nail in the coffin.
The Ottomans were a rising power in Anatolia.
Right.
And they just gradually chipped away at Byzantine territory.
And then 1453.
1453, they finally captured Constantinople.
Marking the end of the Byzantine Empire.
End of an era.
Over 1,000 years of Roman history in the East. Gone.
It's a tragic end, but it's important to remember that the Byzantine Empire left a lasting legacy.
Okay.
Their influence on Eastern Europe, the Orthodox Christian world, is undeniable.
So even in decline and fall, the Roman world continues to shape history.
It really does.
It's a reminder that history is never really over.
It's a conversation that continues to this day.
It's crazy to think what it must have been like in Constantinople in 1453.
Oh, yeah.
Like this legendary city facing the Ottomans.
A clash of titans.
It's like something out of a movie.
Oh, totally. Constantinople had those amazing walls.
Yeah.
That location, so strategic.
Right.
Centuries of history behind it.
But the Ottomans, they were a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, yeah, led by Sultan Mehmet II.
It's second.
Young, ambitious, determined to take the city.
He even brought those massive cannons.
Those cannons, oh my gosh.
Ones that could blast through walls.
Yeah, like they were made of paper.
Game changers.
They bombarded the city relentlessly.
And they controlled the Bosphorus Strait too, right?
They did, cutting off Constantinople's supplies.
So the Byzantines, under Constantine XI, they put up a fight.
They did. A valiant defense.
But they were outnumbered.
They were outgunned.
Outgunned. Constantine, the last Roman emperor.
The last one.
Knowing the odds, he still fought for his city.
What a story.
It's a heroic end.
It really is. Tragic, but heroic.
Yeah, legend has it he led one final charge.
Oh, wow.
And just vanished.
Vanished into the chaos.
Wow.
His body was never found.
So the Ottomans take Constantinople.
They did.
It's the end of the Byzantine Empire.
The end.
What happened to the city?
Well, Mehmet II, he wanted to make it the capital of his new empire.
Okay.
He renamed it Istanbul. And started transforming it.
Wow.
But he was also really impressed by the Hagia Sophia.
Oh, yeah. What did he do?
He had it converted into a mosque.
So even in conquest, there was a sense of respect for the Byzantine legacy.
I think so. I mean, Mehmet II, he let the Orthodox Christians keep practicing their faith.
Okay.
Obviously under Ottoman rule.
Right.
But still, there was some continuity there.
It's amazing to think about how Constantinople, the heart of the Roman and Byzantine worlds, becomes the center of a new Islamic empire.
It really shows you that cyclical nature of history. It's fascinating.
Wow, we covered a lot of ground today.
We did.
From Romulus and Remus to the fall of Constantinople.
Ew. It's a lot.
It's been an amazing journey through Roman history.
It has.
What are some of the big takeaways?
Takeaways.
You hope our listeners are walking away with?
I mean, first of all, just the adaptability of Rome.
Okay.
From a small city-state to this massive empire, fragmenting, transforming in East and West.
It's constant evolution.
It really is.
They were masters of reinvention.
And it wasn't just military power.
Right.
It was their legal system, their culture, their ability to integrate different peoples.
It's amazing.
It is.
And Roman history.
Yeah.
It's not just a straight line.
No.
It's complex. It's messy.
Successes, failures, triumph, tragedies.
Yeah.
It's all in there.
It's about ambitious people like Caesar.
Augustus.
But it's also about everyday Romans.
Everyday people.
You know, fighting for their rights.
Right.
And it's about the legacy.
The legacy.
That Rome left behind.
Still influencing us today.
Law, language, art, architecture.
Unbelievable.
It's everywhere.
You know, this was just a taste.
Yeah.
There's so much more to explore.
There is.
I hope it makes our listeners want to keep digging.
Keep asking those questions about the past.
That's what it's all about.
What a fantastic note to end on.
It was fun.
We've only scratched the surface.
Barely scratched it.
And yet, Rome continues to fascinate us.
It does.
So keep exploring, keep learning.
Deep learning.
And join us next time for another deep dive into history